evening's session. But I am very excited to be here tonight speaking with all of you. And I have the privilege of talking about two of my most favorite topics. I have been a type 1 diabetic, as Christy said, since 2003. So I've been dealing with the disease for a little over 16 years. And I was diagnosed at 8 years old. Similar to the majority of you on this call, that came as quite a shock to me and to my family. And we went through an entire crash course related to everything to type 1 diabetes. I also love working out and being physically fit. I swam for Ball State University all 4 of my years in college, and I was a butterfly and freestyle specialist. I absolutely loved the 200-yard butterfly. Some people may say I'm crazy because I love that particular event, but I loved swimming the butterfly events, and I also dabbled in the freestyle and individual medleys. As far as type 1 diabetes management, I started using an insulin pump when I was 10 years old, and I started using a continuous glucose monitoring system when I was a senior in college. So the majority of my collegiate swimming, I did not have access to a continuous glucose monitoring system. So I was testing multiple times a day and upwards of 25 times a day when we had our swimming conference championship meets. In addition to being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I know some of you on this webinar also have celiac disease, so I can speak as to how you can best manage your type 1 diabetes and your celiac disease as you continue to exercise and be physically fit. Now, one of the reasons why I love talking about type 1 diabetes and exercising is because I can draw on my own personal experiences as a student athlete, but I can also draw on my education. In May of 2019, I received a Master's of Science in Exercise Science with a concentration in sport performance. And I am also a certified health education specialist. So I hold my CHES license and I love educating others, especially in regards to these two topics. I'm now a head swimming and diving coach at Anderson University in Indiana, and I continue to present for JDRF. And I travel across the nation, not now because of the coronavirus, but I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to hold these virtual seminars and talks. So let's first talk about exercising. And if you're on this webinar, you're probably already interested in exercising, and you may already taking proactive steps to be physically fit. But exercise is amazing medicine, and we're going to talk about the short-term effects first. Right now, there's a lot of stress in our lives. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't really know when this coronavirus will pass or when we will be given the all clear from our politicians. But exercise is a great way to reduce the tension, and it also leads to more restful sleep at night. So if you find yourself tossing and turning and you can't fall asleep, exercise is one of the ways to decrease your stress levels, and that will in turn will help you sleep even better at night. Exercise is also great for depression. It gives you an increased sense of control and pride. So when you finish a workout, you can hang your hat on the fact knowing that you put yourself through the rigor and you were able to complete the workout and really take advantage of those 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour that you set aside for yourself. And then exercise in the short term can also help reduce our perception of pain that we have in our body. So when you exercise, endorphins are released, and endorphins interact with the opiate receptors in the brain. And those receptors will then reduce the perception that we have of pain. So contrary to what others may be thinking, if you are exercising more, you're actually going to be feeling less pain. Now let's talk about the long-term effects of exercise. So type 1 diabetic, non-type 1 diabetic, exercise has some fantastic long-term health effects. The first is it helps to prevent heart disease because it encourages collateral circulation, and it also reduces the risk of atherosclerosis, which is the clogging of your arteries. It also improves our cholesterol levels. So we'll have elevated blood lipids, which will then lead to a longer, more productive life. And exercise can help in preventing obesity. we'll be burning more calories, we'll be increasing our metabolism, and you will be suppressing your appetite. So when you work out, your body releases more leptin, which is the appetite suppressing hormone. So that is why if you start your day with a workout, you're not only getting a jump start on metabolism, but you will notice that you won't be mindlessly eating and you won't be feeling as hungry as you would be if you worked out in the beginning of the day. Now, for type 1 diabetics, exercise is also extremely important. And this is where I love to share why exercise can make a difference in our lives and in the lives of those we love and care about living with type 1 diabetes. To begin with, the more we work out, the greater we have when it comes to insulin sensitivity. So our bodies will be more susceptible in picking up on the insulin in our bodies, and then that insulin will be able to shuttle the glucose in our bloodstream to the muscles. So think of insulin being that transport. It gets you from point A to point B. The glucose that we eat is in our bloodstream, but when we give ourselves insulin, either through the insulin pumps or through the insulin shots, the insulin's then transporting that glucose to our muscles. And when we work out, we won't be needing as much insulin as those who live a sedentary lifestyle. Another benefit of exercise is that it slows down the post-meal blood glucose variability. And when I say post-meal blood glucose variability, I'm basically referring to those spikes that we often see after eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And for some of us, we may experience more spikes at one meal and not as many spikes at another meal. But the reason daily exercise will slow down that post-meal variability is because exercise slows down the carbohydrate absorption. So rather than your body uptaking all of the carbohydrates right away, the carbohydrate absorption rate will be slowed down, so it'll flatten that curve. It'll flatten the curve of our blood sugars. It also leads to accelerated insulin action. So when we give ourselves the short-acting insulin, and we work out on a daily basis, then that insulin is going to act much quicker. And when the insulin acts quicker, it won't be giving our bodies as much time for the blood sugar levels to rise. The insulin will act and it'll immediately start to level out those blood sugars, then seeing those spikes that we often see and often dread. And for those who are newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I'm not in that phase. I've been a type 1, like I said, for 16 years. But for those who are newly diagnosed, daily exercise has been shown to increase the time that you spend in your honeymoon phase. And daily exercise, daily aerobic exercise has been shown to increase your honeymoon phase by up to 2 years. So if you think back to your honeymoon phase, you're not going to see as much blood sugar variability, and you probably won't be giving yourself as much insulin because your pancreas is still releasing small amounts of insulin. So if you are newly diagnosed and you are already active, or you can go ahead and start into an aerobic activity plan, your time spent in the honeymoon phase can be extended, and that in turn will mean that you're using less insulin on a daily basis. Now, the next slide that I'm about to show is one of my favorite slides in this presentation. And this slide shows the insulin sensitivity that people have. And on the y-axis, you have insulin sensitivity. On the x-axis, you have the days of the week. And basically, we're going to look at these 3 lines as 3 different people. This line right here, that's just above the poor line, or the poor coordinate on the insulin sensitivity axis, is for that individual who is never active. So this person lives a very sedentary lifestyle, and they are not active on a daily basis. Their insulin sensitivity is poor. If you look at someone who works out 2, maybe 3 times a week, you would say they're moderately active. Their insulin sensitivity has ebbs and flows. So when they work out, they have a greater insulin sensitivity. But on their rest days, their insulin sensitivity is much lower. And now, if you look at the person who is active on a daily basis, their insulin sensitivity is very, very high. And this is what we should be striving for. Now, you may be wondering, okay, what is insulin sensitivity? And I'm going to be sharing with you what insulin sensitivity is. And I'm also going to be talking about my personal experience and how I saw my insulin sensitivity vary. So insulin sensitivity is how our bodies take the insulin. So if you are more sensitive to the insulin, you will not be needing as much insulin. 10 units for 100 carbs may be exactly what you need to cover your carbohydrates. But if you have a high insulin sensitivity, then you may only be needing 6 units because again, your body is going to uptake that insulin in much greater efficiencies than someone who is not as active. Now, when I was in winter training for collegiate swimming and diving, it wasn't uncommon for us to practice in the water for 2 hours at a time, twice a day. So I was in the water for 4 hours, and then I would also have a dry land or a weightlifting session for 1 hour each day. So on any given day during our winter training, I was physically active for 5 hours. During winter training, my basal total daily dosage, so the amount of insulin I was using in my pump for the basal rates, was right around 18.0 to 18.5. Now, when my body was getting ready for the championship meet, we would reduce the amount of time we spent in the water. So I would go from 4 hours down to 1 hour, and I was not lifting, I was not doing any dry land circuit. My total daily dose during that time was 34 units. So when I was really, really active, I wasn't needing much insulin. I was only needing 18 units and I was still battling low blood sugars. But as my aerobic activity flattened out and I wasn't swimming, I wasn't working out as much, and I was preparing for that championship meet, I had to greatly increase my insulin levels so I would remain within the optimal zone, and then I would be feeling my best and feeling my strongest. So the goal is to make sure that we are as active as we can be so our insulin sensitivity is high. Now, after seeing these graphs and after learning about the benefits, the short-term and the long-term benefits of exercising, you might think that exercising is a no-brainer, right? I mean, you see the data, you say, okay, exercising, that's what I need to do. But it's a lot easier said than done. So there was a qualitative study back in 2004, and I understand that's past 15 years, but the findings of this study are still very relevant today. And this study analyzed the attitudes and behaviors, the attitudes and barriers to exercising in adults with type 1 diabetes. So it was a qualitative study. They interviewed 26 individuals, all who lived with type 1 diabetes, and they wanted to identify why people were not exercising as frequently as they should. And prior to this study, there had only been one study completed that examined the barriers to exercising in type 1 diabetes management. So after doing these interviews, what did they find? They found that 6 main barriers were discovered. And we're going to go through these 6 barriers now, and then we're going to talk about how we can overcome these barriers during this stay-at-home order. So the first barrier they identified was lack of time. Well, right now, it's common to have a little bit more time on your hands, especially if you're a student and the semester is winding down, if you're someone who doesn't have as many work hours or you're not able to go out and about in the community. Some of us have more time. I understand that there is a portion of us, there's a group of us who is working in essential businesses and our schedules may not have changed and we may be working the same hours or even picking up additional hours. But hopefully during this time of stay at home, you will be able to find an additional 20 minutes or 30 minutes to work out. So lack of time was number one, but I think we can overcome that. The second barrier was access to facilities. So people had a hard time either paying or finding gyms, pools, parks, different places they could go to be physically active. Well, I'm here today to tell you that you can get a fantastic workout in your own home or outside. You don't need the state-of-the-art gym. You can go ahead and you can get a great workout in from the comfort of your own home. So we're going to check number 2 off the box. Number 3, lack of motivation. Now this is one that can be personal for some people. They may not have that intrinsic motivation. They may not have it within them to get up and to get working out. But I'm going to be talking about how you can bring in some family and friends to help you work out and to serve as accountability partners so you can be active and you can be living a physically active lifestyle. The fourth barrier they identified was body image. So some people did not feel comfortable going to the gym, and they did not want people watching them as they worked out. They were afraid of being embarrassed or of judgments. But again, I'm going to show you ways that you can be physically fit here in your house or in your apartment, so then you don't have to worry what others may be thinking about you. The fifth one that people identified was the weather. Now, I love working out outside. If I'm able to go for a walk or a run and it's nice and shiny and the sun's out, that's where I'm going to be. But on a day like today, when it's in the 40s and it's raining, obviously the weather is still a barrier. But again, hopefully we can find a program that works for you, and we can find a plan so you can take advantage of the warmer weather when we have it, but you can also revert to indoor activities that will still give you a fantastic benefit when the weather's not so nice. And lastly, there was an insufficient knowledge of exercising in T1D, and specifically the management of your type 1 diabetes when exercising. People were afraid of going low. That was a very common theme from this study. And people were also afraid of what they might do when they're exercising if their blood sugar goes low, or if their insulin wasn't working. They were going for an extended run, they were going for a weightlifting session, and their insulin pump wasn't working, or they had a bad vial of insulin. How is that high blood sugar going to affect him or her when he or she's working out? So there was an insufficient knowledge of exercising and your type 1 diabetes management. And this is going to be the one that we're really going to focus in on as well. So I'm going to give you ways to work out and to overcome these barriers, but then I'm also hoping to educate you and equip you with more knowledge to then feel as if you can get a solid workout in and diabetes will not be holding you back. So at this time, before I move on, Christy, are there any questions right now from the group?
I don't see any right now. If you do have any questions, at the bottom of your little toolbar there is a Q&A box. You can go ahead and ask your questions there, and we will be answering those. So go ahead and type them in there. But as of right now, I do not see any, Tanner.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Christy.
You're welcome.
And again, don't hesitate to ask questions. I'd be more than happy to answer. I want you to get the most out of this session. So, in talking about the sixth barrier, it's very important to understand that there are different types of exercises. So you may have heard about anaerobic exercises, and you may have heard about aerobic exercises, but you might not fully understand what is an anaerobic exercise and what is an aerobic exercise. So I love this chart because not only does it show what forms of exercises are anaerobic exercises and what form of exercises are aerobic exercises, but it also shows you what happens to blood glucose levels when you're doing each type of exercise. So let's look at the anaerobic exercises first. The anaerobic exercises are those exercises that are shorter in duration, but they're full of high intensity movements. So the best example I can give of an anaerobic exercise is weightlifting. You may be going up for a 1 rep max. You may be trying to push as much as you can up on the bench press, and that is going to classify as an anaerobic exercise. And when you're trying to push that weight up and push that weight up, you will most likely be dealing with hyperglycemia or high blood sugars. And the reason is because your liver holds glucagon. So the glucagon is stored in your liver. And when you're doing those really hard, high intensity movements, your liver is going to release that glucagon into the bloodstream as glucose. So think of it as a bunch of grapes. You have all these grapes in your liver, and then your liver notices that you are working really, really hard and you need extra energy to get through a weightlifting set or a short burst of activity. It's going to pluck off some grapes and it's going to put those grapes into the bloodstream. And that extra glucose will give you the energy you need to complete the workout. Now, in a person without type 1 diabetes, the pancreas and the chemical receptors in the body are able to pick up on that increased glucose in the bloodstream, and automatically more insulin will be pumped out of the pancreas, and it will be a closed system. So if your body's giving you more glucose to get through the workout, then your pancreas is going to release that insulin, and that insulin is going to shuttle the glucose, like we talked about, to the skeletal muscles, so you can go ahead and complete the workout. But in the people with type 1 diabetes, we don't have that closed loop system. We don't know how much glucose has been deposited into our bloodstream. So we have to guess. And that's why you often find that your blood sugars go higher after anaerobic exercises. Now, aerobic exercises, on the contrary, normally lead to hypoglycemia or low blood sugars. Now, aerobic exercises are those exercises that are longer in duration and they're lower in intensity. Now, you have to think of lower intensity with a grain of salt, because you may be swimming. For example, I was a swimmer. Swimming is aerobic exercise, but we were swimming at really high intensities. But we were also practicing for 2.5 hours at a time. So the duration will actually trump the intensity. So you may be going for a 40-minute brisk walk, or you may be going for a 2.5-hour walk, and you're just going to be listening to podcasts for the whole 2.5 hours. Both of those forms of exercise will bring your blood sugar down. And it just depends on how long you're going and what the intensity is. But know that the amount of time you're spending doing continuous movement, that's the key, continuous movement, that will cause a lowering effect in your blood glucose levels. So when you're doing those aerobic exercises like cycling, like walking, like running, I ran a marathon, I ran the New York City Marathon this past November. You have to be planning for low blood sugars. So it's very, very important to have your fast-acting carbohydrates on you at all times. So there's anaerobic exercise, aerobic exercise. Anaerobic, you normally go up. Aerobic, you normally go down. Okay. Now, I also want to talk about adrenaline. So adrenaline raises blood glucose levels. So I know in this webinar, we also have some athletes. When I was swimming in college, it wasn't uncommon for me to go really high right before my championship race. And that's because my body was releasing cortisol, epinephrine. I was having these hormones released into my bloodstream, and those hormones are counter-regulatory hormones. So they're going to cause an increase in your blood glucose levels. Now, adrenaline is also found in those anaerobic exercises, like the short bursts of activity, the sprints, the judged performances, because you have to work yourself up. You have to make sure you're ready to go. And then boom, your body's giving you that extra oomph that you need to get through it and to perform your best. But again, that's going to raise your blood sugar, and our bodies don't know how much of that particular hormone was just released in the bloodstream. So it becomes a guessing game. So if you are an athlete and you are going into a big game, big match, big race, or if you are doing an activity where winning is the primary objective, normally you think of those short bursts where you want to win and you want to, go all out for 30 seconds or for 60 seconds. It's not uncommon to also see your blood sugars rise because of the adrenaline, the cortisol, the epinephrine, those hormones that are then released into your bloodstream. All right, so now we are going to move on to how you can take care of yourself during this stay-at-home order and be physically fit. Now, the first way to stay active during quarantine is to walk. And I know that this sounds very, very elementary, but walking is a fantastic form of exercise. You can walk inside, or you can choose to walk outside. This is a form of exercise that you can do wherever you are. It's not uncommon for my mom or dad. I'm back home in Central Ohio right now during the quarantine. It's not uncommon for them to see me going up and down our flight of steps. And that's because I'm trying to make sure that I hit at least 10,000 steps a day. Now you may be wondering, okay, why 10,000 steps? Well, the International Journal of Behavior, Nutrition, and Physical Activity recommends that 10,000 steps a day is a reasonable target for healthy adults. But I also want to encourage each and every one of you to come up with a goal that is unique for you. So if you are already someone who is really active, or you walk each day and you average about 12,000 steps, see if you can hit 13,000 or 14,000. And on the contrary, if you're someone who lives a more sedentary lifestyle, or your work right now has you sitting down at the table and you are working for hours on end and you may only register 3 or 4,000 steps, try to get 5,000 steps or maybe 6,000 steps. Make a goal for you that you think is attainable during this stay-at-home order. And again, I want to shoot for 10,000 steps, but I know that some days I'm going to have more steps than others. A general rule of thumb is that 2,000 steps equals 1 mile. So another way to look at this is that they recommend everybody walks at least 5 miles each day. Now, here's another way to ensure that you're walking. Make it a friendly competition. So my dad and I, right now, challenge one another, and we see who can get more steps in each day. My dad has an Apple Watch. I have a Fitbit. But if you have an iPhone, there's also an app called the Health app, and that works as a pedometer. So you don't even need one of the fancy watches to record the number of steps that you have. If you have your cell phone, you'll be able to record the number of steps that you're taking each day. If you're living alone, I encourage you to create a group message with some family or friends, and you can send screenshots like you see over here on the PowerPoint of your step counts each day. And this can serve as your step verification. And you can make a challenge out of it. Plus, if you're living with your family or some friends, why not throw in an incentive? The person who records the most steps each week can pick out what the family is going to have for dessert on Sunday night. Or that individual can choose which movie the family is going to watch on Saturday. So come up with something fun. Now, I also have over here the word aerobic, and it's in red. And the reason it's in red is because walking is an aerobic form of exercise, and it's going to lower your blood sugar. So the red is a caution. If you are consistently walking with your heart rate over 100, it can lead to hypoglycemia. Now, I'm an individual, and I still consider myself to be fairly active, and I swam at the Division I level for all 4 years. But I went out on a Zoom call earlier this week. It was on Tuesday, and the Zoom call was an hour, and I was walking, not at a fast pace, but my heart rate was right around 109 to 104. And about 46, 47 minutes into the Zoom call, I felt like I had just been hit by a truck. And I looked at my CGM, and I was 58 and dropping. And prior to starting that Zoom call and prior to starting that walk, I was 112 with the arrows going slowly up. So again, aerobic exercise doesn't have to be running a marathon. Even walking can have a profound effect on your blood sugar levels. So make sure that you're prepared, but also if you're someone who's not super active, know that this is a form of activity that you can do to really enhance your insulin sensitivity and to increase your sense of control when it comes to your type 1 diabetes management. Now I want to talk about yoga. Yoga is another form of exercise that you can do during this quarantine, and I am a huge fan of yoga practices. It's important that we are taking time for ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and yoga allows us to do just that. Now, it's important to understand that there are different types of yoga. There is gentle yoga, and there is also restorative yoga. These forms of yoga practice have minimal effects on your blood glucose levels. So they are normally slower yoga practices, and they'll focus more on flexibility, and you will not be moving as much as you would be in other forms of yoga practice. And because you won't be moving as much, you won't be having as much variability in your blood glucose levels. Now, if you choose to do quick flow yoga or sun salutation practices, where you are consistently standing up, laying down, going into down dog, jumping up to the top of your mat. If you are doing more fast-paced yoga, that has the potential to lower your blood glucose levels because, again, it is more aerobic. So if you are on the higher end and you want to come down, your blood sugar's on the higher end and you want to bring it down, but you don't feel like walking or it's raining outside, think about finding a quick flow yoga. Or if your blood sugar is within the perfect range and you just want to clear your head or you want to work on your hamstring flexibility, then think about doing a more restorative yoga practice. Now, when I talk about exercising with type 1 diabetes, and I specifically talk about yoga, I'm always asked, when is the best time to do yoga? And the answer is simple. You decide when it's the best time to do yoga. For some people, the best time to do yoga is right in the morning when they get up, because it helps them to stay even keeled throughout the day. And if their blood sugar is within a great range when they wake up, yoga can help to preserve the time that you're spending in your optimal zone. Other people choose to do it right before they go to bed. They may be going higher after dinner. They may have, a piece of fruit for dessert and their blood sugar is starting to creep up, but they want to do some quick flow or sun salutations to not only bring that blood sugar down, but to center themselves and to prepare themselves for a quality night's rest. So it doesn't matter when you do yoga, except you must decide when it's best for you. Now you might be wondering, okay, when can I do yoga? Or how can I do yoga? Well, I'm going to go through some yoga practices that you can access from your own home, either on your laptop or on your cell phone. So the first platform you can use is YouTube. Now YouTube has free videos and they vary in lengths and styles. So again, if you want a slower, calmer yoga, you can type in restorative yoga. Or if you want to do chair yoga, which again will have a very minimal effect on your blood glucose levels, you can type in chair yoga practices. And you'll see a handful of videos that you can choose from. Do Yoga With Me is another website that you can access. It's www.doyogawithme.com. And they have free pre-recorded videos. But they also have 2 months of free premium access right now because of COVID-19. And some of the free premium access includes live classes that you can join, but it also includes yoga practices for other autoimmune conditions. For example, they have some great videos for those battling rheumatoid arthritis. And we know that type 1 diabetes, or living with type 1 diabetes, means that you are also at an increased risk for living with other autoimmune diseases. So I encourage you to take advantage of the 2-month free access and see if you're interested in any of those live classes or any of the pre-recorded classes that they have for special populations. And then this is my personal favorite yoga app. It's called Yoga Down Dog. And the reason I love this app is because you are given a brand new practice every time you log on. So when you log on, you choose the type of yoga you want to do and you choose the duration of your practice. So if I have more time, I'll normally do yoga for about 45 minutes, and then I'll put in the 5-minute of the yogi sleep at the end, your savasana, where you'll just calm yourself down, focus on your mindfulness, and focus on your breathing. The other reason I love this particular app is because you can target which specific poses or areas you really want to focus in. So if you went for a long run yesterday and your hamstrings are super tight, you can add in hamstring flexibility into your yoga practice, and the app will generate a guided practice for you to follow along with, and it will hone in on those specific areas. The cool thing about this app is it is free right now until July 1st, 2020 with an educational email address. So it doesn't matter if you're in kindergarten, doesn't matter if you're in your last year of college, it doesn't matter if you're a PhD student. If you have a school email address, you will be able to access this app for free until July 1st. If you are a professor or a teacher or a coach or someone else working in higher ed, you will also, or in a public or private school, you will also have free access to this content. If not, you will be purchasing a membership for Down Dog, and the monthly membership is $7.99. And while that might seem expensive, if you go to some yoga classes, you'll notice that you could be spending upwards of $15 to $20 per class. All right, now let's start talking about HIIT workouts. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training, and HIIT workouts are tough. Some of you may be agreeing with me and laughing, and some of you may not understand what I'm talking about. Well, HIIT workouts include bursts of high intensity activity followed by shorter recovery periods of rest or lighter intensity exercises. I recommend a 30-second on, 15-second off ratio. So that's called your work to rest ratio. Some people like to have a 1-in-1 work to rest ratio. So they may go on and work for 30 seconds and then take 30 seconds off. The 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off ratio is a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. And again, it's based on your personal goals and what you feel you can handle. Something that's very interesting, and this has just come about in the past few years, and we talked a lot about it in my, when I was studying in grad school, when I was getting my master's of science in exercise science, is the fact that 20 minutes of high intensity interval training may actually be better for improving aerobic power than endurance training. So there have been studies that show 20 or 30 minutes of HIIT workouts will actually help you more than a 2-hour bike ride. And you may think that you're going to be burning more calories and you may be getting a greater aerobic benefit from that 2-hour cycle. But in reality, these types of workouts will really, really help your aerobic power and your aerobic capacity. Now this video, there is not sound, but this video shows an example of a HIIT workout. So she's doing her rest right now, and boom, she's going to be doing this exercise for 30 seconds. And she's moving through it as fast as she can, and she's making sure those knees get up high. This is a HIIT workout example. And in this particular video, she goes 30 seconds on and then takes 30 seconds off. And she does it for 22 minutes. And this video can be found on YouTube. The link is on the bottom. But these HIIT workouts will really have you working up a sweat. They'll increase your heart rate, and they'll make sure that you're getting a productive workout in at home. And maybe some of you have these beautiful windows and that sunshine coming through. I just do it in my basement, so I don't have that luxury. But maybe some of you do, or you'll be able to do it in your front lawns or on the patio. Now, where can you access these HIIT workouts? Once again, YouTube is a fantastic place to access workouts. Search HIIT workouts, no equipment. Some of the HIIT workouts will require you to have dumbbells or cords, but you don't need dumbbells or cords to be successful. If you type in HIIT workouts, no equipment, they'll give you a plethora of videos to watch, and all you'll need is yourself and your body weight. Now, Planet Fitness is also posting YouTubes on their, Planet Fitness is also posting videos, there we go, on their YouTube channel. And right now, it's their movement is called United We Move. So even though we're all separated because of the stay-at-home orders, United We Move. Now these videos are normally 20 minutes, and they are at a lower intensity than the other options I'm showing. So if you're someone who's new to HIIT, this would be a great place to go to get you exposed to what that type of training is and how it feels. Now, Peloton is also offering free HIIT workouts, and they're offering a lot of different workouts. Now, the important thing is you will get a 90-day free trial if you sign up by midnight tonight. So if you try to sign up tomorrow, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the 90-day pass, and you're going to have to pay for a monthly subscription. But if you sign up tonight, you will be getting 90 days for free. And if you want workout videos that mirror these HIIT workouts, you're going to want to search for the boot camp videos in this particular program. And then the last app you can use is the HIIT Down Dog app. So this is in the same family as the Yoga Down Dog, but the HIIT Down Dog app gives you new workouts every time you log on. And similar to the yoga app, you can customize your workout and you can emphasize the body parts that you want to focus on. I personally recommend doing total body progression. if you do total body progression, this app will give you one upper body workout or one upper body exercise, one lower body exercise, and then one core or lower back exercise. And it'll take you through that cycle. Now, one time I really wanted to work my upper body strength. So I said, oh, I'll do 20 minutes of a HIIT workout and I'll just focus on the chest and shoulders. I had to stop and I was a butterflyer. It can be tough. So that's why I recommend doing the total body workout, because if you are just killing one part of your body for 30 minutes at a time, you're really going to feel it and your muscles will get fatigued pretty quickly. Once again, this particular app is free with an educational email address until July 1st. So go ahead and take advantage of those coronavirus deals. Now, I want to talk about cooling down after vigorous exercising or vigorous exercises. Some of you may notice that your blood sugars actually tend to go higher after you exercise. And the way to combat this is to cool down. And if you sit after your anaerobic activity, or even after your aerobic activity, your blood sugar levels may spike. Now, if you're continuing to cool down, the likelihood of your blood sugar levels spiking will drastically go down. And that's because as you're cooling down, those muscle contractions require insulin. And those muscle contractions require that glucose to then be shuttled into the muscles. So it's important for you to reconnect during this time, but it's also important for you to just move and lower that heart rate so your body's continuing to shuttle any glucose that may be remaining in your bloodstream after a particular workout into your muscles, so then you're not going to have a post-hyperglycemia level. Now, there are probably some families on this webinar as well, and I want to talk about fun ways that families can be active. And you can do this if you have toddlers or if you have elementary age kids at home, but you can also use these strategies if you have high schoolers in your house. The first is a family dance party. You will be surprised at how much you will sweat and how much of an aerobic effect dance parties will have on your blood sugar. So if you have 4, 5, 6 people in your house, after dinner one night, let everybody pick a song, put it on your TV, put it on your Bluetooth speaker, and make sure everybody's up and dancing. Mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa, if they live with you. Just get up and get moving. And if you do that for 4, 5, 6 songs, you are going to notice a lowering blood sugar effect because, once again, it's aerobic exercise with continuous movement. Now, if you're watching family TV and there are commercials and you're watching live TV, I recommend doing some core work or some push-ups or some body squats during the commercial break. So you can say, okay, everybody, let's hop on up. We have 3 minutes right now to work out. Now that won't necessarily have a drastic effect on your blood sugar because it's not continuous movement. You're going to be working out and then you'll stop and then you'll work out and you'll stop. But any movement is better than no movement. And if you do DVR your shows, maybe you can challenge yourself once a week to say on Wednesdays, we will not fast forward the commercials. We will be getting up and we will be active during the commercial breaks. And lastly, some of us have pets. Some of us have dogs. I love this picture. We do not have a dog. We have a fish, and I can't take the fish out for a walk. But if you have a pet, encourage everybody to walk the dog. Don't just have the same person every morning or every night walk the dog. Let's make it a family affair. Everybody's going to go outside for 10 minutes of fresh air, and everybody's going to walk the dog. And again, if you're walking, especially if you're walking at a brisk pace, you're going to notice that your blood sugar levels will start to come down. So, all right. Well, before I start talking about this slide, Christy, are there any other questions that might have popped up as I was talking about ways to be physically active during the quarantine?
I don't see any right now still, so.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Again, don't hesitate to reach out with questions, but I'm almost finished right now, and then we have a time at the end for you to ask any questions you might have. And again, there's no stupid question. Whatever comes to mind, you can ask. Oh, that's playing from the start. Let's go back. Here we go. Play from current slide. Okay, so this is probably my second favorite slide in the entire presentation. And On the y-axis, you have exercise performance, and on the x-axis, you have blood glucose levels. Now, this was a research study that was done in 2010, but the findings still hold true today. And the researchers, it was published in the Diabetes Pediatric Journal, but the researchers, they were specifically working with kids, but they were looking at blood sugar levels and how blood sugar levels affect exercise performance. So they asked those subjects to rate how they were feeling during various types of exercise when their blood sugars were at various levels. And a lot of times I'm asked, well, what should my blood sugar be when I'm running? What should my blood sugar be when I'm playing softball? What should my blood sugar be when I'm swimming? And again, it's a personal preference based on how you feel. Now, obviously, running or swimming at 50 is not going to be recommended by any doctor, nor would I recommend it. And again, running or swimming or performing is not going to be the best when you're 350. But you have to find if you are more comfortable at 100 or 120, 120 or 130, 130 or 150. And you may think, well, 100, 120, those are practically the same. And you would be surprised when you're working out and when you are competing. When I was competing, I found my sweet spot. Now, this journal article suggests that 125 is the sweet spot. So they recommend blood sugar levels to be at 125, but as you can see, performance is still pretty high when you're 80 and all the way up until you're 175. So you have to find what works best for you. When I was swimming, I liked to be 120. That was where I wanted to be. That's where I felt my best. Now, when I did a longer event, and I was a 200 butterfly specialist, so when I did a longer event like 200 butterfly or 200 freestyle, and again, those are mid-distance events, but when I did those types of events, I like to be around 140. I wanted to be a little higher because I knew my blood sugar would come down, but I wasn't going to go low. And I also wasn't starting the race too high, and then I wouldn't be feeling sluggish right when I dove in. When I did a shorter sprint, so if I was only doing a 50, a down and back in the pool, I like to be right around 100. If I was a little higher than 100, I actually felt like my blood sugar was too high and I was actually swimming through jello and I wasn't as efficient, I wasn't as strong throughout my race. So you have to find what works for you, but this graph helps to give you some guideline, and then you can go ahead and test and see, okay, where am I feeling my strongest and what was my number? And the only way you're going to know this is by continuing to monitor and track your blood glucose levels. So I would keep a journal in high school. I would write how I felt in practice, how I felt in that particular meet, and what my level was. Now, if you have access to CGMs or other forms of technology, it may be even easier to track your levels and your perceived rate of performance. But you must track and you must use that data then in making other decisions. And now as we get ready to end, I want to finish with this slide. Once again, movement is better than nothing, especially in a time like we're in. It may be easy to sit down and binge watch a show on Netflix or to play games for 2 or 3 hours in a row. But being active is better than being sedentary, especially when it comes to your type 1 diabetes management. And we've already talked about ways your type 1 diabetes management can be improved. But always remember that any movement is better than no movement. I also want you to remember that you need to be prepared for low blood sugars. And this is especially true if you're out going for a run, if you're working outside, if you're just taking a walk in the neighborhood. Put some candies in your pocket. These are some of the peppermint candies. Put these peppermint candies, put glucose tabs, put something in your pocket so if you do go low, you're easily able to pull it out and treat yourself while you're completing that form of activity before you get to a point where you have to stop and you can no longer manage it. And lastly, have fun when you're working out. When you are having fun, you are going to be in a much better mood and you will be much more productive in whatever workout you're choosing to do. So if you hate running, don't run. If you do not like cycling or riding a bicycle and crossing streets scares you, then don't ride your bicycle. Find something that works for you and make sure that you're having fun with it. Because if you're having fun, you're going to fully reap the rewards of that particular activity. So with that, I wanted to put up my contact information. That is my personal email address. And then I also included some of my social media accounts. I am always interested in helping people however I can. I've been living with this disease, like I said, for 16 years. And as a member of the Speakers Bureau for JDRF, there is no greater joy than talking to people who are newly diagnosed or people who have living with the disease longer than me and having dynamic conversations and discussions to help you increase your sense of control and to ultimately lead to better T1D management. So never hesitate to ask me a question, even after this webinar in a week or 2 weeks. But if anybody has a question right now, I'll go ahead and answer it live so everybody can benefit.
Not seeing any questions right now, but maybe we can wait a few seconds, see if any come in. Thank you for that awesome presentation. A lot of good info in there.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting to see if any questions come in, just to let everyone know, we also have some more virtual sessions coming up later this month. We have with Kelly Schmidt, who is a nutritionist. She's going to be talking about secrets about fat loss and how to keep up with your nutrition during this time. We're also working on a T1D and psychosocial effects of T1D during a time like this. So more to come on that. I think we do have a question that has come in.
Perfect.
Oh, it's Ken. Ken, was that a question or just a comment?
Let me go ahead and look. See if I can access it. Eating habits. Yeah, Ken, if you want to type back, do you have questions about what you should be eating before workouts or after workouts, or what I personally did for eating?
That's a good question. Do you want to just answer it now, just while we're waiting?
Yeah, so
Yep.
me. So what did I do? Perfect, thank you, Ken. All right, so for swimming, I really struggled with keeping my blood sugars up. And one thing that I realized after trial and error, and again, logging my blood sugars, logging how my body was responding to different foods I was eating, and how I was feeling in practice. One thing I learned is that I needed to ensure that I was having high carbohydrates, high fat, and high protein before my workout. So I needed to make sure that I was hitting all 3 macronutrients. Now, people said I was crazy, but I would have a McDonald's milkshake every day before I swam in high school. And that was for 2 reasons. One, we didn't have much time after the school day ended and we had to hop in the pool. There were just about 30 minutes. So I needed to make sure that I was getting something high in carbs, high in fat, and high in protein to get me through the workout. And we came upon that milkshake just by chance. We were out and about. I needed something. We stopped through a McDonald's drive-thru and my blood sugar was fine for practice that day. So I made a little experiment. I did that for the next week, and sure enough, my blood sugar was continuing to stay in an optimal range, and I was getting through the workout. Now, when I went to college, I wasn't able to swing by a McDonald's on my way to the pool. There wasn't a McDonald's on campus, so I had to find another way to get high carbs, high fat, high protein. And I would eat the same lunch every single day. I would have 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on gluten-free bread. I would have a Kind bar, which is one of the granola bars. I would have chocolate milk. I would have a banana and peanut butter. And then I would also have either an Udi's cookie or an Udi's chocolate chip muffin. And I would eat all of that food about 45 minutes before I went to the pool. And I would bolus for 20% of those carbs. So I was leaving 80% uncovered. Now you may be trying to do the math. That was just about 120 carbs each day that I was eating. But I had to find what worked for me. I needed those high carbs to get me up. And then I knew that I needed to start around the 200s or so. And then that protein and fat would slow down the rate of absorption and I would be able to get through a 2-hour workout. Now, when I was competing, it was really important for me to have the snacks that I needed if my blood sugar were to go low. But I also had a separate bag of snacks every time I went to a meet. And I called those my high snacks. So I had sugar-free Jell-O, I had celery, I had carrots, I had food in that particular bag that I could eat if my blood sugar was within the optimal range and I didn't want to risk ruining it with a high or a low, or if my blood sugar was already high, I knew that I could have those snacks to curb my hunger without having a negative effect on my blood sugar. So you have to find what works for you. The type of exercise I was doing, the high aerobic exercise, required high carbs, high fat, and high protein. But again, you have to find what works best for you.
Cool.
Good question.
Doesn't look like any more have come in since Ken's question.
Okay.
We might be.
Let's see.
One more. There you go.
Okay.
Are your eating habits different now?
Yes, they are. So I'm still swimming, not now because of the coronavirus and the pools are closed, but I am still swimming. Now when I swim, I'm not swimming for 2 hours. I'm only swimming for about 45 minutes to an hour. And I am leaving 50% of what I eat uncovered. So I'm trying to eat at least 80 carbs before I swim. And then I'm bolusing for 40 of those carbs. I also noticed that it's easier for me to work out in the morning. So if I am able to get up and work out right away, I have a better chance of managing my blood glucose levels than I do working out at night. So my eating habits have changed, but something that I've been able to take advantage of is the flexibility I now have in choosing when I can work out. As a collegiate student athlete, I was forced to work out at the regularly scheduled practice times. But now I have that opportunity to decide when I want to work out. So I'll normally eat cereal in the morning, something with more sugar, not my rice checks or my bland Cheerios, but something with a little bit more sugar. I'll have some peanut butter and a banana. I'll have my glass of milk. I'll cover about 50% of it, and then I'll go ahead and get my workout in. So my eating habits have changed, but also when I work out and when I choose to work out has changed as well.
All right. Anyone has any last minute questions? I know we went a little bit over the hour, but that's okay. We had some good info there.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for logging on tonight. And again, if you have other questions in the future, don't hesitate to contact me directly or reach out to Christy. I know she and the Central Ohio team are fantastic. We've been involved with the chapter since I was diagnosed in 2003, so they know how to get a hold of me. But if we can help you and we can equip you with even more knowledge, that's what we're all about.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we hope we'll see you on another virtual session soon. So have a good evening and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.